Okay, so this video is kind of a bold statement, but let me just say this. This may be the best all-around team that we've had since the 50s. Hear me out. Yeah, so I'm not kidding. I actually believe that this may be the best all-around team since the 1950s. Now, hopefully we share some of that success that we've seen back in the 50s when we were winning championships, but obviously that wasn't the Super Bowl era, so I don't really want to compare anything from that. We are actually going to be comparing from 1991, one of the Detroit Lions' best seasons as a team. They went 12-4. They destroyed the Dallas Cowboys in a home playoff game. That was one of their best seasons, and it was something to remember. Obviously, we had the best running back of all time, Barry Sanders, but let me get into that a little bit more in a second. But anyways, I'm going to be comparing 1991 to 2018 Lions. 2018, this is the year we went 6-10, okay? So remember that. I'm also going to throw in a couple of things that we've added. But anyways, we're going to be comparing those. Now, do remember that the game was a lot different in 1991 compared to 2018. It was a lot different. But again, this is kind of fair to compare. It's not like basketball. Like basketball, you can't really compare those two because if you look at the 90s and compare them to how they're played today, it is so much different. It's ridiculous. But in the NFL, at least there was a lot of similarities. Now, again, things were different then. It wasn't like a league where everybody was trying to throw the ball like you see now. Like you see the Rams throwing, 5,000 passing yards and Chiefs and stuff like that, scoring 50 points. It wasn't like that back then. But anyways, I thought this would be fair to compare because we're going to look at the complete stat list for the 1991 Lions. So we're going to start this off looking at our quarterbacks. We actually had two quarterbacks in 1999. Those guys were Rodney Peete and Eric Kramer. Rodney Peete actually had the higher completion percentage with 59. We're going to round a little bit here. 1,300 passing yards, 5 touchdowns to 9 interceptions in 8 games. 5 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. That was Rodney Peete. That was one of our quarterbacks, okay? He played 8 games. So where did the other 8 games come from? Again, Eric Kramer. Eric Kramer, 51 completion percentage, 51%. 51%, that's awful, okay? We talk about Stafford having a down year, 51%. Throwing for 1,600 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. When you add together the interceptions, you get 17. When you add together the touchdowns, you get 16. So we had 16 to 17 touchdown interception ratio between the two quarterbacks. That didn't even equal 3,000 passing yards. Like, this was absolutely terrible when you look at how our quarterbacks fared back in 1991. But a lot of people are going to say, wait a minute. The reason we were good is because of Barry Sanders, and I will agree with that. Obviously, he's the best running back of all time. So when you look at Barry Sanders, statistically, played in 15 games, 1,500 rushing yards. He had 16 rushing touchdowns, 4.5 yards per carry. Really good for Barry Sanders. Obviously one of the best of all time. So that's really where the bulk of the work came from. When you look at the Detroit Lions, when they were good, it was a lot about Barry Sanders. And that's why they really could never get over the hump to win a Super Bowl, because it was all on Barry Sanders. They didn't have both. And, I always can hear, we've never had both at the same time, and that's 100% true. We've been kind of close to that at times, but we've never had both, especially in the Matthew Stafford era. We've never even been close to having both. And when I say both, I mean rushing and the passing ability, and that's not even to mention our defense, okay? So those are just the numbers for offensively. Obviously, Barry Sanders had a lot of workload. Now, if you want to compare this to 2018, we definitely can. Now, one thing I would like to mention is that when you look at the 1991 season, coming into that season, Detroit Lions were expected to win somewhere between 6 and 9 games. That was what they were expected. Again, they went 12-4. They were outstanding. 6 and 9 games, and that's very similar to what the Detroit Lions are projected to get in 2018, about 7 wins. So I thought I would just throw that out there just to show you guys another similarity. Now, as we know, the 2018 Detroit Lions defense finished in the top 10 in yards allowed per game. And when you look at the Detroit Lions 1991 defense, because when you look at those offensive stats, other than Barry Sanders, it was kind of horrendous. So it's like, how in the world were the Detroit Lions winning this many games? Well, defensively, they were very similar to 2018. On team defense, they ranked 11th in the league. Against the pass, they ranked 19th in the league. And against the run, they ranked 17th in the league. So none of those are really great. I mean, 2 of them are below average. But as a whole, we'll say 11th. But as a whole, the Detroit Lions last season, they really finished top 10 after a horrendous start. So the Detroit Lions defense should be a lot better overall than that 1991 defense. When you really just look at it simply, it should be better. Okay, we finished better. We have Matt Patricia, who is a genius defensively. We've added a lot more pieces. I mean, to think of how good that defense finished, bringing in guys like Snacks Harrison. And now we're adding guys like Trey Flowers in the offseason. Not to mention the draft at all, where a second-round pick was a linebacker. We got Austin Brown. We got Amani out there. We have a really good team defensively. Defensively should be a lot better than this 1991 team. That's no disrespect to that 1991 team. We just should be really good next season. And it would be a letdown to be anything less than really top 5 next season, because we should have one of the best defenses in the league, in my opinion. So, again, when you look at the Detroit Lions of 2018, and you look at the numbers for guys like Matthew Stafford, who had what a lot of people say a down season, who was bad last season. I did tell you that the league was a lot different then, but look at this. Just look at some of the percentages. Rodney Peete and Eric Kramer. Rodney Peete 59 completion percentage. Eric Kramer 51. When you look at Matthew Stafford, who had a down year, 66 completion percentage. Like, are you kidding me? 66? That's so much better than the two. I mean, you average those out, it's about 54.5% completion. Stafford had 12%, you could say roughly, better completion percentage than those two guys. Now, again, Stafford had a down season, right? He didn't throw for 4,000 yards. Instead, he threw for 3,700 yards. 3,700 compared to not 3,000 yards from these two quarterbacks. Again, the league was different. I will keep mentioning that. But you look at the touchdowns. Stafford threw 21 touchdowns compared to their 16 touchdowns. So Stafford wins in that as well. Look at interceptions. Stafford actually had you can say down here, he threw 11 interceptions. Well, compare that to 17 interceptions that the Detroit Lions threw. So now you're going to say, wait a minute, again, Barry Sanders is the reason this team won. We have to look at Barry Sanders. Right, Barry Sanders is outstanding. But if this guy is healthy, you guys know who I'm about to talk about. Kerryon Johnson, I'm not saying he's going to be Barry Sanders because I've said that before and I got a lot of hate for it. But anyways, this guy statistically could be on the same level as Barry Sanders. Are you ready for this? Kerryon Johnson only started in 7 games and then he was hurt. You know, he played in 10 games, but he only started in 7 of those games and he was hurt. He had 641 rushing yards, which if you double that, that'd be kind of fair. That'd be almost 13, that'd be about 1,300 rushing yards, a little short of what Barry Sanders had. But when you think about it, Kerryon Johnson also had 3 rushing touchdowns. Barry Sanders had 16. But the Detroit Lions had 5 rushing touchdowns from LeGarrette Blount and 3 rushing touchdowns from Zach Zenner. Okay, so it's more just Barry Sanders. We have a deeper group. So overall, even if Kerryon Johnson doesn't match up exactly to what Barry Sanders was able to do, he's going to be somewhere close, and then the rest of the guys will get him that way. He averaged 5.4 yards per carry. Barry Sanders averaged 4.5 yards per carry. 5.4 yards. Now, this wasn't a full season again, so you can't say that it was automatically better than what Barry Sanders did. But 5.4 yards per carry is ridiculous from a rookie running back. We have an offensive line that we've been working on for years, so the offensive line should be able to run block and pass block. We have a deep running back class. We don't just have Kerryon Johnson. No, we have C.J. Anderson, who's really good with the Rams. We have Ty Johnson out of Maryland. We still have Zach Zenner, who had 3 rushing touchdowns in 2018. We still have Theo Riddick, depending on what happens there. So offensive line should be better. Our running game, really overall as a whole, should be better. And Barry Sanders is outstanding. He was doing it all on himself. But then again, now let's look at the wide receiving class. And as we know, the Detroit Lions wide receiver group is, again, outstanding. We have our top 2 guys in Kenny Galladay and Marvin Jones, who are great. Kenny Galladay had 1,000 yards receiving back in 2018. The highest yards receiving from one player in 1991 was just over 600 receiving yards. 600. So that's about a 400-yard difference for just one wide receiver in Kenny Galladay. Not to mention Marvin Jones didn't finish the season because of an injury. Then we have a new guy in Danny Amendola who's like a security blanket. And we have young guys like Travis Fulgham, Andy Jones. These guys all working to get spots. That's not to mention the tight end group. This is probably the best tight end group that we've ever had in Detroit. You could say that. You can make that argument. We have the 8th pick in the draft, T.J. Hockenson. We have an outstanding 6'7" tight end in Jesse James. We have Logan Thomas, who's came on really well. We have Isaac Nauta, who we haven't talked about at all. That's 4 tight ends right there that are really good tight ends. We have a great tight end core, probably better than what it was in 1991. Defensively, the Detroit Lions had 30 sacks in 1991. We had 43 in 2018. Now, our turnover ratio wasn't very great, and that's one thing that we had to fix. I've talked about this. The one thing the Detroit Lions have to fix is that turnover ratio. We have to fix that somehow. We have to figure it out. But anyways, the Detroit Lions, defensively, probably should be better. I mean, we can just look at this. As long as we can figure out that number 2 corner position, I know that's a lot to ask, but anyways, as long as we can figure that out, if we can just have someone solid there, Darius Slay comes back and plays, Snacks Harrison manning the middle, with our new guys, with some of the young guys, with our deep groups at every single position with so many talented players, defensively, we should be a better team in 2019. And not to mention that we have a guy named Matt Prater, who is probably the most clutch kicker that I've seen in a while, other than Jason Hanson. But not only is Matt Prater clutch, he can kick the ball from like 60 yards out and put it through. He's came up in so many big moments. Now, obviously, he's aging, but we've seen when we needed him most, he steps up. He can miss some bunnies, but when he needs the most, he steps up and knocks it down from 60, 58 yards, whatever you may need. So overall, the Detroit Lions in 2019 statistically should be better, but what is the problem? Well, stats don't always tell everything. Sometimes it depends on how the rest of your division plays. If your division is really good, it can be very tough. When you look back at that 2014 season, the Green Bay Packers were 12-4, and the Detroit Lions having one of their best seasons at 11-5. It was unfortunate for them because they probably would have won the division in most every single other year, other than, the year the Packers went 15-1. But almost every single other year, the Lions probably would have won that division, but they didn't because, again, the Packers went 12-4. Now, when you look at it for 2019, do we really think the Packers are going to be that great? I don't. Do we think the Vikings are going to be that great? Not really. And then it's really just us and the Bears. I believe this was going to be my bold prediction list, that the Detroit Lions will win the division. But overall, when you look at it just statistically, we should have a better team in 2019 on paper than 1991. Now, what does this mean? It may not translate to the field. Hopefully it does. It's the second year for Matt Patricia. Hopefully his defense is starting to, kind of buy into what he's doing. We've seen success there in New England, and hopefully we can pull some of that success over to us. Some people want to say, okay, we're doing too much the Patriot way. I understand that. There's a lot of things to say now, and that's a fine argument. You can definitely make that, but we have to wait to the season and see what happens. If the Detroit Lions fall on their face again, then I think that's a fair argument. But at this point, into the offseason, bringing in Darrell Bevell, they have other guys. You had the pieces. On paper, you're great. Let's go win some games. This is one of the best all-around teams the Detroit Lions have had in years, and I think a lot of people are sleeping on us, but we'll come out and we're going to shoot out of a cannon, and I expect a lot of great things from the Detroit Lions in 2019. So, again, on paper, Detroit Lions probably should be better in 2019 than they were in 1991 when they went 12-4 and beat the Dallas Cowboys 38-6, but now we just have to see it actually play out on the field. So, let me hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you guys disagree, that's perfectly fine, but again, if you guys have any video suggestions, let me hear those as well. And finally, go follow me on Instagram at DoseOfDion. Now, again, I know some people don't want to follow because they don't like to hurt their numbers, and I understand that. So if you don't want to follow, that's fine. If you just want to stick around, because I want you to go to DoseOfDion because we're going to have some videos where we're going to do voting polls, and you guys will vote, and that will be the video. And I think the best way to do that will get you guys on Instagram because I have over 100 people following me from DoseOfDion already, so I think it would be great just to add some people there. And I should throw it up on the screen right now how to spell it, but it's capital D, capital O, capital D, DoseOfDion, no spaces on Instagram. Go follow me. Thank you, Pride, for watching, and I'm out.